Bruce Feldman here from Fox Sports and The Athletic. That Georgia-Alabama game was truly one of the instant classics where and our friend Chris Fowler had more points scored in 2 snaps over 13 seconds in the fourth quarter than he saw an entire half calling Titans and Dolphins on Monday night.
Seriously.
That was unbelievable. That kid, that 17-year-old kid is something else, man.
Yeah, he's dynamite. This is a great year for freshman receivers. You got J.J. Smith at Ohio State, who is supposed to be all-world, and he's been that.
I mean, that one-handed grab he made against Michigan State.
Remarkable, didn't break stride.
He made 2 one-handed grabs, but the one for a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
And then, Ryan Williams is just so dynamic. We had him a couple weeks ago at Wisconsin. He scored their first touchdown. I mean, he is so fast. He's such a good route runner, and you see the moves he made. I mean, the thing that really impressed me most was this game gets really tight. It feels like Georgia's taken completely over. There's a part where he's back for a kickoff, and there's indecision between he and the other return guy, and it ends up kind of, biting the Crimson Tide in the butt. They get the ball like their 3-yard line. And then 5 minutes later, when they desperately need a play, he makes a huge play, makes a great adjustment on the ball, then beats 2 guys down the sideline, and they score. I mean, it's insane how good he is. He really is supposed to be a high school senior right now.
I can't imagine. We were talking about it the other day, that some 15-year-old kid is going to have to, some sophomore or junior might have to cover him if he was in high school right now. That's insane that kid would be in high school right now. That's crazy. He's the move he made to make both Georgia defenders collide into each other. Then he moves, and after the move he made to catch it, that really was pretty special. Milroe looks so much better now than he did last year, right? Is that just a maturity or a Kalen DeBoer effect?
I think it's both. I mean, it's easy to say both, but what you see is, he hits top speed, and we saw this last year, crazy fast.
Yep.
And then he's physically a big guy. I don't know if people realize how strong he is. I mean, he does look like a running back physically when you see him in person. He throws a really good deep ball. He's got a really strong arm. I just think there's some polish and different things that now we're seeing that he is maturing before our eyes. And DeBoer is really good. I mean, if there's anybody who is like, I don't know who this guy is. He won a bunch of games and national titles at NAIA level somewhere, which was Sioux Falls. It's not like it's on anybody in major college football's radar.
Right.
And he wasn't at Washington that long. He was at Fresno, did well, was at Washington, did great. He gets here, and I think for a lot of people who are like, how's it going to work in the SEC? You sit there and look, they were so primed. They jumped all over Georgia in that game. And I think you don't do that if your coaching staff isn't really dialed in and has them playing loose and confident. And he gets that. And, he's 5-1 all time against top 10 opponents. I think he's like 14-2 against top 25 opponents in his career. I mean, he just has a great feel for things. And I think you see this, the offense is different. Now, look, Ryan Grubb, who's now the Seahawks OC, he was the guy running the show last year at Washington. They had 3 terrific receivers, and obviously Michael Penix Jr., who is an elite passer. And I'm not saying Jalen's not, but Jalen's different. And I think the offense is different. But they're fun to watch. They really are.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what, you look at the SEC right now. Georgia struggled with Kentucky, and obviously they lose this game. I wouldn't write them off. You have Ole Miss, who we thought was really good because they were just crushing everybody, but they finally play a decent team. And they get Kentucky, but it's in Oxford, and they don't look good at all. I mean, their offense doesn't look good. I mean, I think Tennessee's really good. I definitely feel that way about Texas, but now you're sitting there going, the SEC is a little more wide open maybe than, I don't know. I think we thought it was wide open. It's probably not quite what we thought it was a week ago. I
mean, for Alabama to perform the way it did in that big game with their new coach and Nick sitting up, in the suite, picking games with Miss Terry, on ESPN before. And I know I'm talking about your competition, but it really had to be an immense amount of pressure that he doesn't seem to show. You know what I mean?
He doesn't.
Ever. We had him on, and it's just okay.
That's him. It's crazy. So Chris Peterson, I work with at Fox, brilliant guy, former Washington coach. We had this conversation, he and I, a couple of times, but one in particular, he talked about when Kalen got the job at Washington. And there's some similarities between the two guys in that, Chris had been wildly successful at Boise State and was like the big trick play guy. And he always, he always coached loose. And then he got to Washington and he said over time, the pressure and it's almost like everything crowds you. You aren't the same guy. And he said, that's going to be hard for Kalen to be that way. And he was like, in his interactions with him, he was like, very specific on certain details, and he was like, "Yeah, he was like, you can't stay. You're going to change. It's just like that happened." And so far, again, I'm not with him every day, but even my limited interaction with him, I'm like, seems like the same guy.
Seems like the same
and
guy.
I think he's been really, really smart about. He's taken some of the best things that Nick Saban had culture-wise, and some of the key pieces around him, whether it's Jeff Allen, who's the right-hand guy who was the strength coach, and Ginger Gilmore. These are people behind the scenes, or it's just very masterful. I'm not saying they're going to win, match Nick Saban's run of national titles, but that so far, it's way early, is looking like a brilliant hire by Greg Byrne to get him from Washington in a place where he's never been, and looks like it's pretty seamless.
He's 5-1 against top 10 opponents.
Yeah.
Who's the one that you lost?
I think there's a rematch of those two teams.
Oh, that's right. Coming up this weekend.
Yeah. But that coach
Moving
is now
on.
in the NFL.
Moving on. I know that. Across the street. So Texas, normally it would be a conversation like, do you think Alabama should be number one and Texas or not? Who cares, right? At this point in time, in this now 12-team playoff world. It is Quinn Ewers' job again, right? He's back practicing today for Texas.
This week. Yeah.
They're on a bye with the two new SEC teams having at it on the other
Red
side.
River,
right?
Oklahoma next week. That's
Right.
always an interesting game because wild stuff happens in it. Again, I know we talked about this last week. It's a couple of weeks for Arch. It wasn't flawless. I think at one point he said he gave himself like a C+ or a C grade in his first game. He was sharper last week, and his stats would have been even better. There was like a perfect pass on what would have been a long touchdown that was dropped by one of his receivers. I mean, again, I said this before. This is the best quarterback situation anybody has in college football right now. You have an established guy who's played a lot of football, who has continued to get better in Ewers, and then you have a backup who's extremely talented, very bright, and also has the support system around him that he doesn't need to do anything like rash or bolt or I got to get mine now kind of thing. So he can keep blossoming and developing. We've seen that. So great situation they have. They obviously have a really good O-line, and they have a deep group of receivers. It doesn't mean they're going to win a national title this year.
But they certainly have the
They have a
horses
puncher's
to
chance
do it.
now.
They
Yeah.
certainly have the horses to do it. In the few minutes I have left with you here, Bruce Feldman on the Rich Eisen Show. Travis Hunter is a unicorn, man. I've never seen anybody like him. I've never seen and even if you do see somebody play as many snaps that he does, the excellence on every snap and game change ability that he could come up with on every snap it's second to none. And is he a Heisman favorite, the guy over all quarterbacks? Yeah. You think so?
If they gave it out right now, he would definitely get my vote, and I think he would win it. The only guy who had ever played a high number of snaps like this at a pretty high level was Chris Gamble from Ohio State. I remember doing a story back when I was at ESPN Magazine of a similar Travis Hunter-like numbers. The difference to me is Travis is doing at an incredibly high level, and he's making, game-changing plays, late in the game in the second half, whether it's the diving pick last week where it looks like he comes away from like 8 yards off the ball or from where it is.
He can close. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's breathtaking the way he
His
closes.
instincts, his closing speed.
Yeah.
We had Fox had Charles Woodson,
another guy who knows how to play a lot of snaps.
Yeah, I mean, and Charles is a big man. It's not like Charles is like small corner. Like,
right.
One of the greatest players who's ever played the game. He sat down with him last week. Charles wasn't doing the same volume of play. Like he was. I don't want to say it's dabbling on offense, but it wasn't like
No, not even close. This guy's running routes. He's running route trees.
Constantly. Travis is
Bruce,
probably
he's
going to have a
unbelievable.
1,200-yard receiving season.
Unbelievable. It's true. It's like Otani. I'm serious. It looks like, an Otani in football, in cleats. The way it looks. And I understand I'm talking about, a professional baseball player or whatever, but the analogy is somebody who's really good at one thing and then is just as good at another thing.
Somebody who's great at one thing. Somebody's great at one thing. Yeah. Again, you can take Champ Bailey, phenomenal player. You can take Charles, phenomenal player. I mean, these are generational players.
Yeah.
Certainly Dion didn't play as much as
he called himself a 5-down player.
He can call himself whatever he wants. I mean, he's a legendary player, right?
It was a great game too for them, Colorado, right?
This was So I feel like we're shortchanging this, and even Travis by not pointing out this was to me the best win Dion has had since he's been at Colorado. They were good on defense. This was the best running game in the country statistically. They didn't shut it down entirely, but they held it to like a less than half of what they normally get.
UCF,
with KJ Jefferson's a physical, powerhouse quarterback who can run. They have 3 really good running backs. They have a good scheme for this, and Gus Malzahn. I think we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. One of the best hires Dion has made since he's been there was going to the Cincinnati Bengals off of Lou Anarumo's staff, hiring Robert Livingston. Nobody else knew who he was. Spent a decade there, worked himself up from being a scout to the safeties coach. He has come in there, similar to what Danton Lynn has done in a short time in L.A., relatively anonymous NFL assistant who hadn't been a coordinator and has killed it. This is what this guy's done. They were horrible on defense. They're pretty respectable, and they're also much better in the second half. They're not even giving up like a touchdown a game in the second half, so it seems like they're making smart adjustments. The players are buying in.
And it helps to have a running game to keep your defense off the field, too. That was a very balanced attack we saw at Colorado.
They were committed to it, and I think, again, this was a team that was a 2-touchdown underdog and won by almost 4 touchdowns on the road in a place that's not easy to play. Again, they're 4-1. Like if CU goes 5-7, which I don't think they will, I think they'll be much better than that. And look, not to pat myself on the back because I've got enough predictions wrong, but I thought this would be a bowl team, and I think people were looking at them in the second half of the year as opposed to, okay, they're going to build off this, and if they win 8 games. He's going to be hard to beat for the Heisman because he is a generational talent doing, as you said, unicorn stuff. Nobody's playing the number of plays he's playing. There's, look, Jalen Milroe looked great last week. There's certainly guys who can break through. But again, no knock on a Cam Ward, the quarterback of Miami, whoever. Like we see quarterbacks have terrific seasons and win Heismans. We're not seeing anybody doing what that guy's doing
He's
in
unbelievable. Thanks for the time, Bruce. Be happy in Happy Valley. Safe journey. May your connections be swift.
Yes,
on your way.
College, Bruce. That's how you get there.
There you go. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.